Whenever I post pictures or videos of my tomatoes or other crops that I grow in my garden, I get a ton of questions from people asking, what's your secret? But I have no secrets. I share 100% of my process here for free to everyone because I don't think there should be any secrets or any barriers to information about growing food. I've grown around 100 varieties of tomatoes over the last 18 years, and in this video, I'll show you all of my favorites that I'm growing here in my backyard, and I'll share the keys to growing huge crops of delicious organic tomatoes throughout the summer heat. I'll cover irrigation, organic fertilizer and soil, trellising, pruning, disease management, and more. Let's start here with a new to me variety that I'm growing for the first time this year, but I'll definitely be growing this again. This is Harvest Moon. Although it looks like an heirloom, it's actually a hybrid. So it has all of the beauty and flavor of an heirloom, but with the disease resistance, the heat tolerance, the splitting tolerance of a hybrid tomato. And as you can see, it's extremely productive even through our summer heat. Our average high temperatures throughout July were around 100 degrees, and we had days all the way up to 115. But all of my heat tolerant varieties, including this Harvest Moon, continued to ripen fruit and set new fruit like this in spite of the heat. Speaking of growing tomatoes in the heat, let's talk about my irrigation system and schedule, because I think irrigation is the #1 mistake gardeners make when growing tomatoes in the heat, not because they're underwatering, but because usually they're overwatering, sort of. This is the irrigation system and schedule that I use for all of my summer crops in these raised beds. It's just 1/4-inch emitter line with 0.5 gallon per hour emitters spaced every 6 inches, and I have the lines run about 5 to 6 inches apart. I'll normally run this for 60 to 90 minutes, once every 3 days this summer. Last summer I did it once every 4 days. During our heat wave, when we were up to 115, I ran it once every 2 days, but I've honestly watered my tomato plants once every 7 days, and they've been fine. So it's constantly, for me, an experiment to see not only what my tomatoes and other summer vegetables will survive with, what's the best irrigation to make them taste the best, and what's the best irrigation schedule to make them get their best and biggest fruit. So I'm constantly switching it up. The goal with irrigating tomatoes and most other crops is to establish a deep, vigorous root system. And you do that by watering for long durations, but infrequently. That encourages the roots to grow deep into the soil so that when we get these heat waves and the top 5 to 10 inches are hot and dry, the main roots of these plants are deep down in that cool, moist soil, and they're not affected by the heat. But that's just my irrigation schedule. And as I said, I'm still changing this up almost every year to see what works best for my tomatoes. So experiment with it, see what works best with your tomatoes. These are striped German tomatoes, and if you've been following me for a little while, you might know that these are my new favorite tomato variety to grow for a number of reasons. Reason #1, they're very productive, as you can see, but that's really just a prerequisite for any of the tomato varieties that I invite back into my garden year over year. The main reasons that striped German stands out to me is that I think they are the most beautiful tomato. To me, they're the most delicious tomato that I grow, and they're also the largest variety that I grow. I've grown these up to 2.5 pounds before. Maybe this year we'll grow a larger one. We'll see, but I'll harvest a couple of these, show you how beautiful they are, not only on the outside, but also the inside, and we'll weigh one of these and show you how massive these things can grow. But before I harvest any of these tomatoes, I want to take a second to talk about one aspect of pruning tomatoes. There's a lot to pruning tomatoes. I won't cover it all right now, but one aspect of it is removing the lower leaves of the plant. And that can be very beneficial, but it can also be very detrimental. The reason it can be detrimental is that tomatoes are very susceptible to sunscald. It's like a sunburn for a fruit. Happens to peppers, happens to tomatoes, happens to a lot of plants. These are southwest facing, so they get a lot of afternoon sun. I only cleared all of these lower leaves for this video. Before this, they were covered in leaves, completely sheltered, and that's important to protect them from sunscald. Even with the lower leaves over these, I started to get some sunscald on this tomato right here, and you do not want that, because what that's gonna do is it's gonna damage that tomato, cause it to start rotting before it's even ready to harvest. So if your tomatoes aren't exposed to that midday or afternoon sun, you can remove those lower leaves. Otherwise, I would leave them in place until you harvest and then remove them. All right, let's harvest some of these. Wow, look at the crazy color and shape of this tomato. Looks like a fireball or something. Let's slice into it, see what it looks like on the inside. 1 pound, 9.8 ounces. Wow, okay, now that is a beautiful tomato. Let's harvest some more. Wow, look at those absolute beauties. Right next to the striped German, I'm growing my previous favorite tomato variety, now my second favorite tomato, the Italian red pear. Just these large pear-shaped tomatoes with these nice deep ridges. These things are excellent for eating fresh, but they're also really, really good in sauces or for canning. Just a really nice, beautiful, delicious, unique Italian tomato. Also very productive, just like the striped German. And because these are my two favorites, I have them in the prime position, which means they get the most sun of anywhere else in the garden. Pretty much full all-day sun. And no, I do not use shade cloth, but this is a good opportunity for me to talk about how I space, plant, and orient my tomatoes in the garden so that they do get good sunlight while also giving some shade to one another as the sun goes over the sky. I normally plant my tomatoes about 18 inches apart, and if I'm growing them in rows, ideally those rows are running north to south. That way, as the sun moves across the sky throughout the day, the plants are getting some sunlight and some shade on all parts of the plants, as opposed to rows that are running east to west, where the south side of the plants are getting full all-day sun, resulting in a lot of sun scalding on the fruit, and the north side is in full all-day shade, resulting in less fruit and smaller fruit. This is a New Girl tomato. It's an improved variety of the popular hybrid Early Girl, and while it just kind of looks like your standard tomato, it's not flashy like a lot of those cool heirloom varieties. This is probably the most important tomato in my entire garden because it is an absolute workhorse. It's usually the first tomato that I harvest every spring, and it's often the last tomato that I harvest every fall. In addition, it's extremely heat resistant, so it continues to put on new fruit throughout the season, setting fruit throughout our 14-day heat wave with temperatures up to 115 degrees, and this will actually fruit until mid-November here in Northern California. But the best thing about New Girl is its extreme disease resistance. Tomatoes are susceptible to a huge range of diseases, many of which live in the soil, so crop rotation with tomatoes is extremely important. Normally my tomatoes are on a 2 to 3, even 4-year crop rotation between soil before I can plant it in that same spot again. But I'm actually growing this New Girl in the exact same spot that I was growing tomatoes last year. And look at this plant. It's huge, it's healthy, it's full of fruit, and there's zero sign of disease in late July. So New Girl, absolute workhorse. Another relatively ordinary looking tomato that I'm growing that is certainly a contender for the top workhorse tomato in my garden is Estiva. Like New Girl, Estiva has excellent heat tolerance and it's very disease resistant. But what stands out the most to me so far with this variety are these massive clusters. I mean, look at this. This is just insane how much fruit this one plant has put on. You might have noticed by now that I'm using two different types of trellis systems this year to support my tomatoes, and neither of them is my favorite tomato trellis, which is still the Florida Weave. And I have a full video on that trellis that I'll link, but I want to show you the two systems I'm using this year because they're both very simple and very effective. In the center of each bed, I'm trellising one plant up a single stake. You could use any tall stake, but I'm using 10-foot tall, 3/4 inch conduit pipe. As the plant grows taller, I tie it to the stake with nursery tape just about every foot. In order to support your tomatoes on one single stake, you should be pruning them to between 1 and 3 main liters. I have mine all pruned to 2 liters and it's working great. What I mean by that is that I allowed the main stem and 1 liter to grow and I removed all of the other suckers. If you're not familiar with a tomato sucker, I'll show you what I mean. Tomato suckers are these lateral buds that form to look like a tiny tomato plant at the base of each leaf, also known as the node. If you want to minimize branching on your tomato plants, it's as simple as pinching or snipping off these little suckers as soon as they form. The other type of trellis I'm using this year in my garden is the livestock panel trellis. And I have a full video on livestock panel trellises that I'll link here. But this year I'm using them in the form of an arch, which is something that I did about 10 years ago. And that livestock panel arch trellis was actually featured on the cover of Better Homes and Gardens magazine with a full tutorial in Eating Well magazine. So since then, this type of trellis has become very popular, as it should, because it's a very effective and very attractive trellis. Essentially, it's just one 16-foot long livestock panel that I've cut into more narrow strips. They're about 18 inches wide, and I have them held in place with 3/4 inch conduit pipe that I attach to them with zip ties. I start with one post at each corner. I'm using 4-foot rebar stakes as the anchors. Then I'll slide on these 5-foot tall, 1/2 inch conduit pipes as the main supports. But you can really use any tall, sturdy post like a T-post or bamboo. The one thing you can't really substitute is this 16-foot livestock panel. They're all made with this sturdy 4 to 5 gauge steel, and that's what's important. I'm using zip ties to hold this in place because for me, it's a semi-temporary trellis. But for a permanent trellis, I'd recommend using metal wire. This is a great trellis for tomatoes, cucumbers, melons, pole beans, peas, squash, passion fruit, really any tall or vining plant. This has 6 openings on it, so I have the tomato plants pruned to 6 main leaders. And as they grow, I just weave them back and forth through the panel, and by the end of summer, this will be completely filled in. This tomato right here looks like it's just full of unripe fruit, but this is actually a sun green tomato, and it's full of very ripe green tomatoes that are absolutely delicious. Cherokee Purple is one of my favorite heirloom tomatoes to grow, and that's probably why I've been growing it consistently for the past 12 to 15 years. Not only are they beautiful and delicious, as most heirloom tomatoes are, but for me at least, they have the added value of being very prolific and very reliable. They set fruit all summer long, even through the heat. You can see a bunch of fruit set here, even with our recent high temperatures and that heat wave. But they do have one downside, and that is they split very easily. A lot of heirloom tomatoes will split. These specifically split very easily. That's not so big of a deal for me because I'm just growing these for myself. I'm not growing them for market where it would be a problem. But I do want to be sure to harvest these pretty soon after they split, because once they split like that, they're very susceptible to rot, especially if you're growing them in a very humid area. Here it's pretty dry, so I can let them split and hang for a few days without rotting. But these are ready to harvest, so I'm going to harvest them all right now. Wow, look at that beauty. Nice little harvest today. I'll probably harvest the rest of these tomorrow. This is my first year growing carbon, which looks and tastes very similar to Cherokee Purple. So here's the carbon and here's a Cherokee Purple. As you can see, they look pretty much identical, and you'll have to take my word for it, but they taste pretty much the same as well. And while I still prefer Cherokee Purple because I think it tastes a little bit better, probably subjective, the difference is that carbon has much more disease resistance and crack resistance. Cherokee Purple are very susceptible to cracking. Carbon, all of the ones that I've grown so far haven't cracked. You can see this big one on here. It's actually grown into the cattle panel, so I can't even remove it right now. But for comparison, here's a larger Cherokee Purple, and you can see all of this splitting on it. You see the carbon has no splitting at all, but the Cherokee Purple has a lot of splitting on it. And that's just a common characteristic of a lot of heirlooms, especially Cherokee Purple. And I still prefer Cherokee Purple over carbon, but I can't deny the insane clusters of tomatoes that this plant produces. Look at this cluster that I harvested last week. Oh my goodness. Look at that. That's insane. This is Midnight Roma, and it's probably the most uniquely beautiful tomato in my entire garden. But one thing it has in common with all of the others that I grow is that it meets that prerequisite of being extremely prolific. One of the keys to consistently growing huge crops of tomatoes is healthy organic soil. Soil that's alive with beneficial microbes, bacteria, and fungi. That's what's doing most of the work here. Sure, I'm helping, but those microscopic organisms in the soil are doing all of the heavy lifting. So when I built these beds, I filled them with a custom blend of topsoil, compost, worm castings, and lava fines. Then when I planted them, I used this EB Stone Organics Sure Start, which is what I use when I plant everything in my garden. And I fertilize these and all my other summer crops every 6 to 8 weeks with this organic tomato and vegetable fertilizer. A lot of people ask me what fertilizer I'm using as if it's the reason I'm able to get crops like this, but this is just the fertilizer that I've been using for like 15 years now, and it works well for me. I do have a full video on fertilizing summer vegetables that I'll link, but fertilizer is just one small part of the equation. I could be using the very best fertilizer in the world, but if I'm ignoring all of the other aspects that I talked about in this video, I still wouldn't be having success in growing tomatoes. And there are so many factors when it comes to gardening and growing tomatoes that you could be doing something completely different than me and still have great success. So this is not the way to grow tomatoes, this is just the way that I grow tomatoes. So let's learn from one another and share our experiences to help each other learn. If you learned something from me in this video, hit that like button and consider subscribing. If you have any questions at all about my tomatoes or your tomatoes, ask them in the comments below. Happy gardening.